Alright, what's up my fellow YouTubers? Grant, otherwise known as Mr. Octopi here, bringing you another video. Now, this one is a Black Ops gameplay over whatever game type, over whatever map, using whatever gun with whatever people. I do not care what I'm using, just because I'm literally just recording right now. I need to talk about something, and it's awesome. I don't have time to put gameplay in there, I don't have time to do anything. So, I'm just going to be talking, I don't need to look at the gameplay, whatever, I'm sure it's, cool, I go 500,000 to 1, so, there you go, don't worry about, you can just turn off the gameplay right now, this is all about the commentary. First, let me give you a little backstory. So basically, I got home from school today, I had a dentist appointment, and one of the things I did over school was I was researching Intel's Ivy Bridge processors, because Sandy Bridge E, their new 32 nanometer, well not new, but their 32 nanometer architecture kind of redo from normal Sandy Bridge and from Westmere and that kind of stuff, or whatever it was, I don't even remember. Then they're going to be redoing that, they're going to, it's going to be loads faster, all this hype and this kind of stuff, and I was gonna hop on that train, but then it got delayed way back to about February, I'm pretty sure, just today or yesterday, just because some C1 stepping has brought some bad things for the VTD, or whatever you call it, for business applications, and they're gonna be waiting for a bit longer. So, during school, I was like, alright, screw this, I'm gonna wait, because there's already been a lot of problems, a lot of the technology things that they're gonna be adding in, like more solid ports, more SAS ports, more USB 3.0, more lanes, Gen 3.0 for PCI Express, that kind of stuff. It's almost all out of the window. So it almost isn't even worth it for the price. So Ivy Bridge comes along. Now, I've known about this for a little bit, and I didn't think it was going to be awesome, but basically this is going to be either their tick or their talk. I'm pretty sure it's a tick. No, it's going to be a talk, where they changed the architecture, and it's going down to 22 nanometers. Basically, that's just a manufacturing process on how small they make the, I don't know if it's, I'm pretty sure it's how small they make the transistors. They can pack more in, they're going to be using 3D transistors, all this kind of stuff. It isn't going to be the main powerhouse overclocking machine, threading, all that kind of stuff as Sandy Bridge E would be, but it's still pretty nice. So I was looking at that, and I said, alright, cool. Let's research a little bit. So, I did this looks awesome, I'll get the mid-range one, I'll get a decent motherboard, and I already have a bunch of the parts, it'll be pretty cheap, and I'll still get some good performance. I can render videos a bunch faster, still have 2 computers, get some more monitors. Great, this is awesome. Well, I'm kind of bored right now, so I'll just wait until some more news, because there really isn't anything. Wait a second. So, we're talking about fast, right? Fast is always cool. You love fast things, fast cars. The thing with fast computers is that there is no speed limit. With fast cars, there always is. So fast computers can always get faster. And nothing will limit that in terms of if you have them that fast, they're not going to make you go slower. But right now, some of the problems we're having is that we're using electrons on silicon-based boards, traveling over copper wires, which really has limitations. Now, mind, electrons are pretty freaking fast. I mean, nothing can really travel faster than an electron currently that's man-made, like a car. You can't drive faster than an electron. Those things, I don't even know how fast they are. So, basically what happens is that the signals are, shot through the actual copper wires, and transistors are used as on-off switches, and then those on-off switches go on and off, and then they use logic gates, such as and, or, nor, not, that kind of stuff. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. It's coding kind of stuff, and just everything. It's in computers. On-off is basically just like I/O for computers, 1 0 1 1 1 0 0, that kind of stuff. So what it goes through there, goes on and off, and whatever logic gates goes through some processes. I don't know the specifics on it, but that's how your computer works. Mainly, it's focused on electrons traveling throughout whatever CPU, motherboard, graphics card, whatever you're doing, and the logic gates turn them on and off. I mean, the transistors turn them on and off, and the logic gates interpreting them and turning that into actual signals that your computer recognizes, which corresponds with what you use. That's basically how it works currently. Now, the way we get faster is we add more cores, which basically makes it so that, oh, sorry, I'm just thinking about CPUs. Alright, basically how we get faster is we just make it smaller. Make everything smaller, it's more efficient. We can pack more punch in a smaller amount of space, and we can use that more space to add more things that are smaller so we can get more efficiency, we can get more power. That's how everything right now is based on how it gets faster. And the problem with that is that once you get smaller, you keep on getting smaller. You know, right now it's used that you get the silicon board, then you get this plastic kind of whatever thing, and you put it on top, and then you use wavelengths of light to actually, like, what do you call it? It eats through the silicon board and makes a square. That's how you make your square in or micro architecture. Sorry, I'm pretty sure it's micro. And what that does then, no, sorry, it's nano. So what that does is that every time you get smaller, that's a new process. Instead of taking 32 nanometers for the square, it's 22 nanometers. And then they can fit the transistor and that kind of thing and make it, you know, just all that kind of stuff. So the only problem is that the wavelength of light is, I always get confused between the two. It's like 150 nanometers or micrometers. Whatever one is being used. I'm pretty sure it's nanometers. And since we're doing it less than the wavelength, they've actually had to use semiconductors, and they can make it fourth the size, but that's still, let's just say at the best, 25 nanometers. Now, once you get too small, there are actually imperfections on when you make the actual said squares. So whenever you make it so small, then the ratio, or whatever you want to call it, on how much you can messes up a lot more, because the wavelengths actually create little divots and that kind of stuff in the actual square, which can screw everything up. And once you get too small, you can't do that anymore. So there are either two things we can do. One, we can find a way to make light particles smaller, or two, we can completely change on how we make it in terms of still using electrons. Three, we use light. Light, you know, the quote fastest thing in the universe, even though there have been things to travel faster, whatever, freaking fast. One of the fastest stuff, some of the fastest stuff in the universe. And basically, what you could do then is use light instead of electrons to travel through optical fibers to carry information from said place to place, and then use the logic gates. Only have to be optical logic gates to interpret the actual light signals, and use logic gates to interpret those and that kind of stuff. It's the exact same thing as a regular computer you have now, only it's all optical, so it works a lot faster, and you can most likely make it smaller. You can pack everything in, which I will explain later. Now, problem they've always had is how to transfer that light through whatever optical fiber and be able to interpret it. Currently, there are some, which I'll explain later, but there really aren't too many things that can interpret, like, that would work as a transistor. An optical transistor. There really aren't right now any decent working ones that are at a good, you know, whatever, that are reliable and everything that you can use, and you don't have to worry, like, you can mass produce them and everything. So for all intents and purposes right now, there are no optical transistors. So what instead we did, which is what I'm talking about currently, a year ago, a little more than a year ago, there hasn't been too much information on this kind of stuff from then, but Intel, love Intel, has created a way to transfer light and turn it into electrons, and then that goes into the transistors, and then the logic gates, and then into the information that your computer uses. So it's like a hybrid. You know, your solid state drive and your hard drive. Your solid state drive is the faster one, no moving components. And your hard drive is, you know, the quote outdated one, even though it's still being used by almost everybody. Now, the hybrids actually use solid state drives, but they like kind of combine it with hard drives, so it's cheaper. But in this case, they combine electrons and the transistors with light, so it's still super fast. I mean, currently it's 50 gigabytes a second. If you don't know what that is, basically your USB 2.0 thing that runs at, let me see, about 2 gigabytes per second. That's less than 2. What was it? So USB 3.0 runs at 5. So that means 500 megabytes a second. That's right, 500 megabytes a second. Thunderbolt, which is light peak in Intel's terms, that also uses light technology. That's 10 gigabytes a second. This is 50 gigabytes a second, and this is basically the first thing. What it does is that, you know, it just has an optical fiber, sends the line, and then it splits up the light, and it turns it into electrons, and then it goes into the transistors. Now, how they do it? Each of the light frequencies can run, I think it was 12.5 gigabytes a second. Now, Grant, how they get it to 50 gigabytes a second. That's a pretty solid jump. That's 4 times. Hey, wait. 4 times. Now, what they did, there are different light frequencies. This is what you can't do with electrons, and this is where light can really hit and go faster and faster and faster and faster, and that's how we would improve the actual light if we ever get to that point. You can use different frequencies of light, I don't know, what would you call it, of light lines, of light, whatever. And then let's say you have a blue, a yellow, a red, and an orange. There you go. There's 4 12.5 gigabytes a second lines. They're all on one. They can all go together in one single optical fiber because they won't light acts, because it won't kind of combine with itself and it won't screw everything up. They'll still carry the same information and everything, but they'll all work together, and then they separate each of the frequencies and turn it into separate lines of electrons into the transistors and everything. So you have 4 channels, each at 12.5. Now think about it this way. They're actually talking about being able to go up to 8 and go up to 16. Alright, so let me do a little bit of math here. Take out my pen. What is 16 times 12.5? Let me get this. So basically, let's just go 160 plus 12. Let's just round it up to 190 gigabytes a second. Let's go up to 200 gigabytes a second. No, 190. 200 to make it easier, but alright, you have that. 200 gigabytes a second. What if that gets old? Now, what if you could go, keep in mind this is 16 different like frequencies for the different channels. Now, what if you can combine each of those 16 for separate 16? So you have 1 16 of each color, another 16. What if you have another 5 of those 16s? Now that's 1 teraflop a second. You don't really need to follow me. I'm just explaining because I'm super excited about this. They have actually been talking about trying to get up to a teraflop a second. Now, what that means, alright, the biggest hard drive they have currently is 3 teraflops. No, terabytes a second. The biggest hard drive they have now is 3 terabytes. That means 3 terabytes of information in 3 seconds can be transferred. That's insane. Like you can transfer, let's just say 100 Blu-ray movies in 3 seconds. You can transfer 100 Blu-ray movies in, let's say, 1 second with that kind of stuff. That's cool for hard drives and stuff, but they'd have to change it. It'd be like, instead of measuring everything in hertz, because now it's like, 3.4 gigahertz. I'm pretty sure now they change it into how many gigabytes a second the processor runs at, how many channels it has, and instead of cores, it'll be channels, or how many 16 channel things you have that you combine. And you can obviously go up from that. Now, what happens then? Okay, whatever. That's pretty cool, that's pretty freaking fast. But what about a non-hybrid? Because remember, this is completely hybrid. This has light and electrons. And, the electrons are the limiting factor in today's computers. Now, we can always get faster, but eventually it's going to get way too small, and we can't do anything about it. It's going to screw something up, we're going to need to do something else. So, this light is really going to help us out. What about an entirely light-based computer? And what the limiting factor right now is, as I said before, is light transistors. Not theoretically, in practical terms, we have no light transistors. But I've just read an article talking about how some Chinese are awesome, thank you Chinese people, have created an actual light transistor. I forget how they do it. They spread across metals, and like the actual lasers go through the metal, and then it goes through it's really hard to explain. Let's see if I can actually pull this up. So I'm looking at I'll put all the links in here. So basically, there's 3 lasers and there's silver nanowire. So one laser is just like, if there's laser 1, laser 2. If they both go in, then it's an OR. If either one is powered, then it'll go through. And there's a control laser, so that one's off, it'll go, like, it won't work, and if that one's on, it'll continue working. That's how you put in your gates. And then there's all this kind of stuff. It's hard to explain, because I'm just so excited right now, but in theory, this could work, and it is working. The only problem with it is that the silver nanowire, gold nanowire, if there's any imperfections in it, any bumps, then there are a lot of problems, and it almost won't even work. So that's the only problem. They are developing optical transistors, but I guarantee you those are a long way away. But a full light computer, oh yeah, look at that light. I mean, computers running out of lights and optical fibers and everything. Oh, that's pretty cool. No, it most likely will happen. maybe within my lifetime. I'm guessing it will happen in my lifetime because it's only been until 2016 when they're going to get down to 10 nanometers for the actual process of making processors at Intel, and I don't think you can get too much smaller than that. Seeing that right now, the waves are just too big. So basically, Intel might be implementing some kind of this stuff. Currently it's 50 gigabytes a second. That was a year and a half ago. I'm sure maybe even it's like 100 gigabytes, 200 gigabytes a second. They may have gotten up to 16 channels. But most likely, within the next year, I'm guessing they will introduce some kind of terabyte a second. Maybe within the next 2 years, maybe within the next 3 years. But they have this now. It's awesome. I can't wait for it. Just saying, it's out there. This is some kind of cool technology thing. One of those things I saw, I forget where, apparently a full light computer has been estimated that it could be up to 1 billion times faster than the current Electron computer. That is really fast. And although you're like, oh dude, why do I need more speed? Why do I need more faster internet? One, a lot of the math equations that even our most powerful supercomputers can use still takes sometimes even a few days to get through. So we could always use more speed. And even at that, like, who doesn't want more speed? I mean, come on, a faster computer. We always need more bandwidth for consuming, more monitors, higher intensity games, higher intensity whatever. The only weird thing would be is that what if we went to that 50 gigabytes a second right now? What? I mean, the frame rate, let's say Battlefield, would be like 5,000 frames a second. So, they're like, this stuff is coming. This is my main note. It's already been 17 minutes. This is probably going to be like a 3-part series or something. But it's coming. Light computers. I'll put the links in the description. Everything is coming. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. So, look at the news. I'm going to be looking at this every week or so just to see if there's anything new. I don't know. I hope you'll enjoy the video, guys. Stay tuned for any updates. Just look out for them. And hope you enjoyed the video. Rate, comment, subscribe if you really do feel like it. My name is Grant, or Mr. Octopi, and have a nice day.
Optical communications literally for decades now in a whole range of computer applications, but the costs have just made it impossible. But I think we're really at a threshold, at a transition point, at an inflection point, as Andy Grove would say, where the cost of optical communication is about to drop dramatically as a result of finally getting it integrated with other silicon processes. So silicon photonics has that potential to really usher in this new era of optical communications for all sorts of devices.
We've been talking for many years about research in silicon photonics, and all those breakthroughs have been at the device or component level. What we're announcing now is for the first time we have an integrated silicon photonics transmitter that's capable of operating at 50 gigabits per second with hybrid silicon lasers.
The two big inventions of the 20th century was the invention of the transistor, which led to the integrated circuit in the computing revolution, and the invention of the semiconductor laser, which led to fiber optics and our whole communications revolution. The importance of Intel's announcement is that these industries can become merged. At UCSB, in collaboration with Intel, we have been developing a hybrid silicon laser that can be integrated with modulators to make terabit transceivers. In this way, we can integrate thousands of lasers on one chip and lead to very low-cost, high-volume processing of photonic devices.
I think almost every manufacturer of a connected device is going to have to start thinking about how high bandwidth, low cost optical communication is going to affect the products, even the services that they deliver. It's that fundamental an idea.
So why is 50 gigabits exciting? It's just the beginning. What we've demonstrated now is the ability to integrate these components together. And just like we do in our normal business where we integrate more and more transistors for new form factors and new functionality, we're going to do the same thing. We started here with 4 by 12.5 gigabits per second, which gives us 50 gigabits out of a single fiber. We're now going to continue to scale up in line rate, so we've already demonstrated modulators at 20 and 40 gigabits per second. We now can integrate more channels. Instead of 4, we can go to 8 or 16. And when you add those together, we can start looking at bandwidth output of 100 gig, going to a terabit per second. More importantly, as we continue to scale in the data center and the high-performance computing, handhelds, clients, 3D TV, all these things, higher resolution monitors are going to want and consume more and more bandwidth. And what we're announcing here is the ability to deliver that bandwidth through a single chip, photonically, based on silicon photonics and hybrid silicon lasers.
If we're really going to realize these tremendous cost reductions that are so much at the heart and really represent the potential for silicon photonics, we've got to move them into high volume manufacture. We've got to move them into these big silicon factories. And that's the challenge we face over the next few years, is proving that you can make silicon photonics in high volume at low cost and deliver extremely reliable devices. And that's the work that's going on right now at Intel.